Hi, John. I'm
Hi,
Sarah
Sarah.
coming.
How are you?
Um, Such a pleasure to chat to you today.
You too. Hello.
Maybe for people who haven't seen So Torn yet, you can give us a bit of an intro. Quite a quirky one to describe.
Well, it's like a very quirky, unique crime caper with elements of start-stop animation, amazing practical effects that are done with thread, with the invention of this character's mind that Eve plays, the seamstress, Eve Connolly. I don't think I have ever read anything quite like it. I mean, it reminds me of reminded me of the childhood stories that I read when I was a kid, where anything could happen, where people were really inventive with really simple things, very things that came to hand. And the beauty of this film is that it had a father and son team, Freddy and Fred Macdonald, Freddie, who's 23, 24, directing, and his father, who'd co-written it with him, looking after everything, especially the practical effects when they had to do very involved things. I'm thinking of when my character, especially around my character, they had to kind of corral my character using only thread. I'm trying not to give too much away. It was wonderful. It's an amazing shoot that wasn't done for a lot of money, but had a lot of heart, a lot of commitment, and a lot of talent. I mean, I think Freddie's an extraordinary talent.
I do this thing where I actually try not to read too much about film when I go in to watch it, even sometimes the synopsis. And I just loved how this one just kept me on my toes the whole time,
Yeah.
I kept thinking, oh, we're in this kind of film. No, we're not in this kind of film, whether it be the concept, the tone, and how it kept kind of shifting and wrong footing me. So did you have that feeling also when you read the script?
Yeah, I didn't know where to pitch it to begin because my character he's involved in there's three separate stories, so but they all kind of come to the same end, or and it's like a story that was read to me by the schoolmaster or headmaster in primary school, a new installment every week of a guy that comes to a crossroads, and he has four directions he can go. He can, go ahead, right, left, or he can go back. And this film is like that. She has choices. She's confronted with a choice, and there's three or four choices she can make. So the film follows each choice, and I'm in each choice because the thing she's decided to do involves my character in a big way. So I'm kind of like the big bad wolf in it. I keep trying to chase her down and get what she has that belongs to me back from her, using whatever means necessary. So I'm a pretty scary character, and I didn't. To answer the very long-winded answer to your question is in that kind of world where everything is so topsy-turvy that the tone can change, the rhythm can change, the look can change. It's very you have to pitch it in a very particular way, and I think my character had a line that he repeated each time he came across upon this scene. I can't remember the line, but I remember the
Not
first time.
not so mobile anymore.
I remember not knowing quite how to pitch it in terms of the feel of the whole film. So Freddie was once I had a couple of days under my belt like everybody else. We kind of got into this is kind of the feel of it, where anything can happen. Kind of the most extraordinary things are acceptable because of the world he's already constructed, because with the elements of the seamstress, with her gifts around that anything is possible. I think it was a wonderful, different way to work for me. It's really interesting, and Eve's fantastic in it. Eve, who plays the seamstress, the main part, is fantastic and Irish. So we had a good laugh. It was a good time, good fun.
And I guess what I do love about it is it does kind of mix those genres, and perhaps when you look at your character, we can feel like we're much more sort of in a kind of thriller, he's kind of like this mobster, quite like villainous.
Yeah.
But then there are these really surreal, quite comedic moments. Even the way he delivers that line, it's kind of like
Yes.
the darkly comic edge
So
to it.
the
How
only
did you find the cat? Were you like thinking of other references of
yeah.
what kind of guy this is?
Yeah, I thought of John McAfee because I couldn't think of anyone else who could say that line in that situation with that kind of lunacy. I know he's dead now, but he was an extraordinary character. but I didn't do a copy, I didn't imitate him, obviously. But as a reference point, I said to Freddie, I've been watching a lot of John McAfee documentaries and videos since we decided to do this. And I think there's something, and there's an element of him that works for the role that allows that kind of comedy to creep in, because there was a kind of comic, fantastical element to McAfee that I thought was useful. So that's what he was my reference point.
And the fact that it is kind of like showing that, like you said, these sort of three different tangents, were you almost thinking of like each was a different riff on the character, and you're sort of like maybe seeing a different side of it? So was that also quite fun to lean into? It's like, okay, slightly different iteration this time.
Yeah. And you're building up all the time to the third, or is it the second or third story? Maybe it's they wanted the scene in the diner with the 6-page speech to his son about the goods that have gone missing and their relationship. And so in your mind that you're always heading to that point. And that point is where you get to see the animal, the human being, the psychopath, the father, all those things in one, whereas you're only getting glimpses of him up until that point, and glimpses of a character who could fit into any other genre in a way.
About the performance from Eve, which is just fantastic. And I love how, she's kind of, the character itself is quite quirky. You don't really know how to place her, because, is she sort of a bit innocent, but then she's got like a bit of an edge too. So it's quite fun to play opposite her. And of course, also Callum is your son.
Yeah, Callum was fantastic. Callum was... I'm thinking of that diner scene because that's when we were all together. There was another scene where we were all chained in a room or something, but that diner scene where we were in situ and seemingly my character had all the power, so I was holding court in a way. But she then at the end of that sequence had to get up and do a dance where it's a kind of a non sequitur, because she's actually laying down the foundations of my demise with using her skills as a seamstress, but I don't know that. But so all I can see is this woman who suddenly decided to do this kind of whirling dervish dance. We didn't really rehearse that part. As we didn't rehearse the speech, we kind of shot first time, all the time on those big scenes. And she just got up. I remember Eve getting up and dancing, and it was riveting. It was amazing. And it was, as you say, elegant, beautiful, but awkward and eccentric at the same time, and particular to her. So yeah, I totally agree. She was amazing.
When there are films like this, where it's like, there is so much in the aesthetic and kind of these, little stunts with the thread and everything. Is that the kind of thing that actually you don't really get to see fully until when you see the finished film? Because I guess in the shooting of it, that maybe is like all done separately and added in afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was there while Freddy and Fred were talking about how they needed to angle this in order to get the thread to go here. And I was like watching it. This is the point. I'm not going to say the point of where it was, but it was a very pivotal moment for my character. I never know. And I was fascinated by that. It kind of was like old school in the best sense of the word. It was like making use of what was in front of you, improvising, arriving at something that's really interesting and that grabs you. I can't say enough about how I rate Freddy. I think Freddy Macdonald is really something. I think he given what we had, which was very little, and given what they had and what he had and his father had, and I haven't seen it, by the way, but I was there when it was being made. I know, talent or class. I don't want to sound patronizing, but when you see it.
And in terms of kind of, I don't think it's a film that takes itself too seriously. I mean, there are those undercurrents, aren't there? The fact that she's grieving the loss of her mother and, like this father-son relationship that's there. But, I love the way it is sort of playing with this idea of the decisions we make. I was even thinking, is it chiming slightly with sliding doors?
That's right.
These split-second decisions, so do you think that's almost more what people are sort of left with pondering, like, oh, what would I do if I were in Barbara's shoes?
Exactly. No, exactly. I don't know what I would do. But you've come across a briefcase full of money and 2 people lying on the road. I don't know what I would do. I'd probably phone the police. I hope I would. but she does do that as well. She does do that, and that doesn't go so well either. So, you know, but it's a really clever take on the things that plague us in our everyday lives. Oh, shall I do this? Will I do this? Can I go? You know, it shows us also that each of our choices have impacts, have ripples, have an effect on those near us and on our lives, on our work. So yeah, choices are important, but at least we, you know, being free to make them is a privilege we still enjoy.
And I was even thinking it was like maybe riffing slightly, you know, even like the likes of Groundhog Day, even though it's obviously a different concept, which is like, you know, going back and revisiting the same moment. And would you always make the same decision? And yeah, you know, that obviously that's like some, you know, kind of a device that's often seen in films. And I wonder what it is about that makes people keep coming back to that. And, you know, there's just something about visualizing it in that way that makes you see it maybe differently.
Yeah. I don't know. Films are extraordinary for that, aren't they? What did I watch the other night? It wasn't a film, it was a documentary. It was Black Box Diaries. An amazing story, amazing courage of that woman. Amazing. So films, they can transport you, but also they're dreamlike. And they transport our everyday lives into a dreamlike state, isn't it? That we all identify on some level. That we all wonder and fantasize about, what if I'd done this? What if I'd done that? What if I'd gone this way? I think that the film is the dream version of that.
And obviously you've done so many different things across theatre, film, TV, written books. Is that part of the joy for you, being able to just sort of traverse across all these different mediums? And how do you pick your projects now?
I think I know, because I'm, you know, getting older, you think, what do I want to spend my time on, and what is it that's important to me? And, you know, I want to try and be involved in projects that have something to say. I always have done, but sometimes that's not, you know, it's 50-50. Sometimes, a lot of the time, it's not the case. But yeah, but I stopped drinking 26 years ago, and my writing came out of that, because when I stopped drinking, it was very, very difficult for me to find work because of, I think, the reputation that was around me at the time. This is 26 years ago. So I'd sort of been half cancelled, or three-quarters cancelled, or I don't know what went. Anyway, it was difficult to get work. So I just thought, what am I going to do? I'll try and write. Nobody can see it. Nobody has to read it. I can just put it in the drawer. And in the end, I found that I really enjoyed it, and I maybe had a story, and then I got an acting job, and so that's how that happened. So I started writing out of just having a need to have an outlet of some kind when I was struggling with my early sobriety, you know. So my sobriety has emboldened me. It's made me realize that you can cross over. You know, you can pop back and forth across different job descriptions. So it's important for me now to have more input.
Do you think any of your books will be adapted for the screen? Is that something you've ever had in mind?
I don't know. It's odd. Someone said to me to try and do the first one. The first one is set at the height of the Troubles. It's a coming of age story about a guy who believes his father died for Ireland, and there's all kind of this romance around his memory, and so the boy collects different ways of dying in his mind, so that on some level he can join his dead father. They're always heroic deaths, you know. And death was all around me when I was a kid. It was always there, always present. I think that might be an interesting thing to try and adapt one day. Yeah, to try and show that enormous waste of life that happened for 25 years.
And in terms of other stuff you've done recently, you've got coming up, I know you've been doing it, Blue Lights and The Head. What else have you got coming up, or how's the experience of being on those shows been?
I love working on Blue Lights. Gilles Bagnier directed the first series of French, and I thought he brought a really interesting sensibility to what is a very not well known but known landscape, you know. And it was, I think, the same with the first series of The Fall. They had a Belgian director direct the first series of The Fall. And it brought a certain kind of atmosphere to it that Gilles captured as well. I've done 3 seasons of The Head, and I've become very close with the director, Jorge Dorado, and the producer, Ran Tellem. And we're now developing a project together that's about Northern Ireland, but I can't say what it is at the moment. But we are actively producing it, and that's exciting. So I'm still very much involved with them and with Media Pro Studio. So that's very exciting. So yeah, I can't complain. I'm not going to complain.
Is there anything on your bucket list aside from those things you've mentioned that you'd love to delve into? Maybe directing or working with a director or actor that you haven't worked with yet?
I always had held a dream, very silly dream, but he retired a long time ago, working one day with Gene Hackman. But that never happened. I've worked with some great people, but for me, he was one of the greatest. He was one of the greatest screen actors. I know it was sad to hear he died the way he did. But no, I'm happy. I just do the next thing that's in front of me. And this project that I'm developing with Media Pro is a dream come true. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite project from the past? I feel like you're always going to be that character in Sliding Doors, because I must have seen that film too many times when I was younger. I love that era, you know, where that was like definitely one of my favorite films. Do people always say that to you, or they have a film they know you from?
I got a lot of letters after I did that film from women who said, I had a boyfriend exactly like you. You're horrible. He was horrible and you're horrible. And I got a few of those. Oh, shameful. Like, yeah, I agree. I did a film in Australia a long time ago that I'm very fond of, called Angel Baby. It's about two schizophrenics who fall in love. It didn't have a massive release. It won some awards in Australia. It was critically very well received. And I did that probably, nearly 30 years ago. I have very fond memories of that, purely because it was a real act of bravery on all our parts to try and take it on, you know, and I'm quite proud of it, of the result.
Amazing. Well, I think I'm out of time, but thank you so much for sharing all that with me. Huge congrats on this film, and of course, best of luck with all these other things you're working on.
Thank you so much. It's lovely to talk to you.